Positive Luxury's mission has always been about more than just a limited definition of environment. When we examine a business's impact, we look at both planet and society. And I just want to list a few reasons why we do that. So when we look at the macro impacts of climate change, such as disease, forced migration, access to aid, quality of housing, all evidence shows that these impacts of climate change disproportionately are felt by poor communities, communities of color, and within both of those, by women. These communities are also more vulnerable to deeply rooted societal frameworks that locate them near polluting factories, toxic highways, and extractive infrastructure that are driving the climate crisis. Following climate disasters that are taking place with increasing frequency, the resources that are required to respond often do not end up in the hands of the communities and individuals who really need that help most. 2020 highlighted the longstanding inequalities suffered by many, but it also generated an encouraging and unprecedented, broad and loud global cry for change to address this. Younger generations, who now account for the majority of the workforce and the consumers for luxury goods, are crying out for not just climate justice, but for social justice in society, from their employers, in the products they purchase, in the services that they purchase. And encouragingly, a growing number of the older generations are standing with them in solidarity. The worlds of both sustainability and luxury have historically come under a fair amount of criticism for inaction in this area. And the lack of diversity and equal opportunity within our organizations has also been commented on. But Positive Luxury is not alone in seeing 2021 as an inflection point, a moment of opportunity for companies and individuals within the luxury world to step up and speak out and be part of a great change. And that's why all of us are here today to talk about the actions that we, as a group of businesses committed to sustainability, what actions we can take to most help those in need of it. And as Claudia said, I'm very fortunate today to be joined by three individuals whose professional lives and personal passions leave each of them well placed to have a really good viewpoint on this matter. So Ayotunde, I want to talk to you first, if I can. Your business that you're setting up, which is launching next month, Claudia's going to put the link in the chat room so that people can check it out because it's pretty cool. You started your career in the world of finance, but you've decided to become an entrepreneur and launch Jendaya and work with a really impressive group of leaders to do that. The last year, as I said, has illustrated the plight of the communities that are most impacted by climate change. Can you talk to me about whether you have seen any changes taking place within the business community that you find encouraging?
Yes, so definitely, I think, just to, I guess, like exasperate exactly maybe one of the things that has brought the kind of plight of ethnic minorities in the community of fashion and beyond to the forefront was Black Lives Matter, and that for us was very encouraging as, as a Black entrepreneur, as a Black man in fashion. I think what that did around the world was send the message that, ethnic lives, Black lives do matter. And in that sense, what we have seen is things like, the 15% pledge by Aurora James of Brother Vellies, which, has caused the movers and shakers, the department stores and the biggest luxury and fashion groups to take a stand and actively look to empower Black creatives within the fashion space. We've also, personally, on a personal level, we've had the opportunity to, to have the audience and the attention of really impressive people in the industry, which I never thought we were qualified or qualified as of yet to have their attention. And they've taken the time to either mentor us, and to the point where one of them, who is a partner at a VC, told us that, their intention is to actually financially empower Black and brown ethnic creators in this industry, so they can build wealth. They can also build generational wealth and hire and impact the community beyond the conversation, beyond the topical conversation, which was all the rage, last year into the summer, and and to have things really changed. I think we are definitely seeing, increasing numbers of companies sign up to things like the 15% pledge. I have seen that very, powerful person in the industry of fashion sticking to what she told us that she was going to do last year. So I think it's been encouraging for myself to see, but there's definitely so much more that can be done, And as you mentioned, I think the younger generation, Generation Z, Gen Zs as they're called, they've really been making sure that companies and brands stick to what they were talking about last year. They called them out on Twitter. They called them out on Instagram. They're not going to let them have it easy, which is great. It's encouraging, and we are seeing a lot of initiatives, to encourage that change. So I do definitely think, it's the start of something positive, and there's definitely a lot more that can be done. And yeah, I'm definitely seeing some positive changes.
Good. It's a start.
It's a start.
It's a start. And can you tell me how did they at all, did the crossover issues of, I guess, racial justice and climate justice, how did they inform the concept for Jendaya? And also, how do you see the business helping address the issue?
Amazing. So I think, one of the things that I've mentioned before, we had like a feature on this sometime last year, and we mentioned how sustainable fashion has always been part of the cultural heritage and fabric of the African industry. So if we go back and look at things like Adire and batik clothing from West Africa, so Nigeria, where they use cassava paste to dye the items, or we look at the mud cloth from Mali, or the kente from Ghana, or the bark cloth from Uganda. Those are all items that are multi-purpose, multifunctional, multi-purpose, and they highlight craft presentation. Now, if you bring it forward to today, we have brands like Tokyo James, Lisa Falawiyo, Alejo, who use who source locally, and they use zero waste pattern cutting to adhere to the standards of being both sustainable and ethical brands. We've seen that standard upheld, and so for us, being a platform that welcomes both established and new brands, as we intend to diversify that standard of what it means to be luxury, we haven't tried to make all our the African or the emerging brands that we're onboarding. We're not trying to make them adhere to a ready-to-wear standard. Not all African brands and not all emerging brands can have that. They don't have the resources, and they don't actually want to produce like that. And so for us, getting on being listed on Jendaya, it's not a prerequisite to have tons and tons of shows in seasons and ready to wear items. We enable brands to still list on the platform as made to order brands. We also buy the collections where we can to support smaller designers from countries like Mali and emerging brands from countries like South Africa. And also what we've also done is, in terms of even the amounts we charge in our business model, for brands specifically coming from the African continent, we understand that not all of them, they face different sorts of barriers when they're creating these collections. So countries in a country like maybe Kenya, the nuance in creating a collection is different than in Nigeria. The problems and the issues they face, so we charge less, for example, on the commissions we take from them. Okay. And I think that's in one of the ways we've seen that kind of like that sustainability affect how we do things in terms of our business model, and just in general in terms of that backstory I've just given, in terms of how sustainability has always been a part of the African fashion community.
Yeah, it's really it's interesting, because we always talk about luxury businesses should be doing less, better for longer. So not only is what you're talking about, basically upholding the principles of sustainability, they're upholding the principles of luxury.
Exactly.
In its best sense.
In its core, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In its best sense. Thank you. So, Vessy, you've got a huge amount of experience, enough to found a business that talks about diversity, equality, and inclusion, and you give advice to some really interesting businesses across Europe and North America, you're also personally an advocate for mental health and I guess, anti-racism. When we met and we were speaking last week, you were talking quite passionately about the need for urgency on these issues. So I'd love to hear from you what you think the benefits would be for companies in luxury and in sustainability of taking action today to create a more diverse workforce and a more genuinely inclusive culture in their organizations.
Yeah. Well, we can look at it on a high level. Do you want to play a catch-up game, or do you want to be a leader? And I think everyone is a bit late to doing this kind of work, but definitely if you postpone it even more, then you'll be playing a catch-up game, and it's much harder to do it because the expectations will only increase. In many of the companies that I work with, when the leadership team is playing that catch-up game and the employees want it, there is a sense of the leaders always feel like it's never enough. But the truth is they have been postponing it for so long that, yes, they are significantly behind. So they started getting frustrated themselves, right? But the employees have been frustrated for a very long time. So it's better to start now, immediately, preferably yesterday, last year. But why do companies do that? Well, first and foremost, it is the right thing to do. It does help with employee engagement and retention. It helps with attracting amazing talent. So in terms of like employer branding and hiring, it's also great. It improves collaboration and innovation. So like having better products, better services. But also when I say better services, I don't mean what you're literally selling, but understanding the customer needs better, hearing the nuances. So much is lost in nuances. So like when we're entering a new market or when we're trying to engage a new customer segment, we need to understand those nuances. So some people always go like, oh, that's political correctness. No, it's about respect. And if you don't understand respect as your own personal value, sure, you can translate it into the monetary value, and nuances can be your, different margins, for example. So, if someone is just driven by money, sure, you can look at that. But so understanding new customer segments, capturing them, and identifying what exactly your customers need, not just on the surface, that is huge. And we see brands that go that extra mile, not just in the luxury industry, but let's say like in fashion or just different industries, and that creates loyalty. Like one of my favorite brands in the world is Patagonia. Like the values, the depth, the purpose, and you get many CEOs or leaders that swear by their authenticity and commitment to diversity and inclusion, or like climate change, whatever. But I think it's been going on for so long that everyone, customers and employees, are very quick to pick up when authenticity is actually faked. We're very quick to spot on. And in the case of Patagonia, like we just know it's there. That's it. That's the company. They are. That's the DNA to the smallest like molecule in the organization, right?
It's all about trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
With them. So let's. You and I have also talked about. We were speaking last week about the leaders of businesses and organizations, and often our backgrounds haven't given us direct experience. That we haven't been on the receiving end of this disadvantage. We've lived more privileged lives, so many of us, but yet there are leaders in businesses that they too haven't had that direct experience, but they've succeeded in building themselves as a leader and their businesses as a culture that really takes these issues seriously. And as you said, embeds it in every inch of that organization. Speaks to it. So what are the sort of qualities that you see in those leaders or in those business cultures that you think have allowed them to build that when the leaders themselves haven't had the direct experience? What can we learn as leaders from those that have been successful?
Yeah, we can look at their personality traits and then their values. Why is that important? You know, the DNA of their organization I mentioned, like if we just have values, but then we of the organization, like company values, but we change the leadership team, the values change automatically, regardless of what's written or posted or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So the way the CEO behaves, the way the leaders behave, that sets an example for everyone. That communicates verbally and non-verbally what's allowed, what's encouraged, what's rewarded, what's punished. And sometimes we see double standards. For example, in the gaming industry, we see, you know, like CEOs never getting fired for like the worst possible things that anyone could possibly do in an organization. They get suspended for 3 months, you know, which
sounds like a holiday.
tells us not. Yeah, absolutely. Probably in the best months of the year. So, you know, when as a CEO, as a leader, we connect with our own values, like who are we? Have we done that kind of exploration? What are our personal values before we're looking at professional values? And I think some people have never explored that. Some people kind of have a rough idea. But when we do that, how much of an overlap is there between our own personal values as leaders or just as individuals? Do we operate differently with our family versus everyone else? Do we have like different agendas in a sense, or can we have consistency actually? And what's the overlap? For example, if empathy or respect or authenticity or courage are my personal values, it's so much easier to just be an authentic and inclusive leader by default. Maybe I have thought about them as like, no, this is for home, or like this is for my friends and family, and at work I need to be, you know, I don't know, assertive and distant and, you know, just a whole different persona. How about we explore that and find that overlap? And that overlap is what would be driving the urgency. Now, similarly, what's the purpose of the organization and what's our personal purpose, or like what gives us fulfillment in life? So it is a very personal exploration. Now, outside of that CEO or that leadership team, obviously the role of like chief diversity officer, any kind of like D&I lead, or, you know, anything relevant to also climate change or social justice or climate justice. Is this a person of authority? And does this person have resources? When I say authority, it isn't just the title. Sometimes we see those big fancy titles and that person knows they have zero authority in the organization. They were just put there as a token to be able to say, oh, we've appointed someone. But we know with brands like Netflix, such a person has tremendous influence. They get tremendous resources. And then they have case studies where they can say, you know, we invested in this. These are the shows. This is how it affects on the viewership. This is how it impacted the world. But this is also how it impacted on the revenue. So, but also we can think about that influence as a personality trait. Is it a person who's naturally influential, or is it someone who, you know, maybe he's a bit more shy, etc.? You know, they can definitely support the D&I work in a different way. So it is a combination of how much power, influence they're given, authority, what resources, so they can do the best in their job.
Great, thank you. Welcome back, Lama. She's in the countryside and she did say my Wi-Fi has not yet been tested. So, right, I mean, this is a very smooth move from what Vessy was talking about. There, you're back. Okay, so this is a good transition from what Vessy was talking about to the way you have run your business for 20 years, Lama. So talk to us about how you have taken your personal passions, your personal values, and applied them to your business to make a successful ethical organization.
Okay, so first of all, I love what Ayotunde and Vessy said. First, the focus on inherited skills, and I think this is the language we need to use today versus having a universal umbrella for everything. And values is everything, as everything within the family, within the workspace, respect, and seeing beyond the categories that we're all put under for so long. So thank you so much for the valuable work you guys do. I started my brand. Actually, I used jewelry as a medium because I was fed up with stereotypes and kind of feeling vulnerable just because I'm Arab, right? It's just something that just you always have to defend your culture, defend your country, defend the people, defend the or fight the stereotypes, and you're always on the defense. And I found it so lame for especially for me coming from the arts where it's all about freedom and self-expression. So I used media that is super neutral to try to put my part of the world on the map, on the design map, for the purpose of basically representing my culture and also creating a cultural mesh with other cultures. So it was based on basically cultural bridges and cultural references from all over the world. And I merged them all within the jewelry sphere. Also, I used it to travel. To my pieces have traveled the world, have been in museums. They've actually represented, they've been an ambassador to my part of the world and to women. So, and they've been an icebreaker also, because who is on the, or who's wary of jewelry? Like everyone wants jewelry, everyone wants to wear jewelry. Everyone thinks jewelry has this protective element or the super personal, intimate element that everyone wants to have on their skin. We're actually naked under jewelry, which is amazing. And we're all naked, not just one person, right? So it's beyond skin, religion, language. And my first reference was prehistoric art. I wanted to use it because this is how a human being expressed herself centuries ago. So my concept was basically, oh, did I lose you again?
We can still hear you, don't worry.
Okay.
You're back.
Sorry, yeah. So it was basically about going beyond all the categories and the squares and the cubes that we have every day. That was 21 years ago. I was really young, I was 20 years old. And I really wanted to conquer the world through art and culture. And I used jewelry to do that. It was as simple as that. And actually, my jewelry went into museums around the world, into the best concept stores, into the most amazing and most inspiring women's necks and ears. And so what I did was build a tribe of incredible, inspiring, and hardworking women that can afford whatever they want, but they choose to be different. They choose to do a statement through wearing jewelry that is reflective of a universe, not just one part of the world. And it's reflective of passion, of womanhood, of connectiveness and solidarity among women.
And Lama, I know that in addition to creating something very unique for a certain sort of person who can wear and buy your jewelry, you've done a huge amount to support underprivileged and often very, very misunderstood women within the Middle East and provide them with opportunities that are both financial, but also at an even more fundamental level, you've given them a voice. And can you talk to us about, what do you think businesses can learn from the work you've done at a community level, and how can they apply that and get I guess, both the huge satisfaction, but also how can they achieve what you've achieved in terms of community impact? We have a freeze again. Oh, she's back.
First of all, coming from the Middle East, from Jordan, you are raised from your youth to be empathetic and connected to society. It's something we don't think of. Thinking of others is really embedded into our day-to-day. Gratefulness and gratitude and appreciating what you have and giving back is part of our culture. But again, there are, like everywhere in the world, a good segment of underprivileged segment in society, and especially females, that are not as empowered, as enabled, and they have the most amazing potential and capacity. So what I did through my project is, whenever we got corporate gifts, we would actually buy tools and the raw materials, and we would train women at home on and giving them skills and giving them new skills and using their inherited skills, because a lot of these women are very good in embroidery and using their hands to do beautiful things. So we did that. We also train a lot of underprivileged or welcome members into our workshop that are, maybe I wouldn't say, sometimes physically unable of doing or participating in the workforce, or underprivileged, and we train and we try to, through the community, give them the tools and the skills to start up their own business and workshop on their own. And one of the core things that I'm focused on is actually creating role models within society. I mean, I think young girls all around the world, just actually literally all around the world, need new role models. They need women of color, they need women from their language, they need the underrepresented segment all around the world to actually participate, be on the stage, be in the forefront, and be enabled, empowered, and find space and have opportunity and have a voice and have impact. And that's my humble opinion about business, female business women and female entrepreneurs. This is the biggest role and gift they can give to society, role models. These girls need to see themselves in these women's shoes, and that's amazing. And I think that's very valuable for us today. And it's everywhere, in third world country, first world country. We have so many different socio-political, social divide. I mean, the world is so divided today and so segmented, and so there's so much racism and inequality that I think it's crucial for women to actually really lead.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody needs an inspiring role model to
Absolutely,
to get them moving forward. We've had some really interesting questions from people dialing in, so I'm gonna throw some of these into the conversation now. Ayotunde, I think you're well placed to answer this first question. So someone has asked, how do we insert and maintain developing economies into luxury markets? Often goods are made in developing countries, purchased with a high price tag in developed countries, from chocolates to electronics. How do we equalize this social and commercial relationship?
So that's a good question. I think, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Perfect. I think that's a really good question. One of the things we've been trying to do at Jendaya is actually get the governing bodies and bodies in countries like Nigeria or Ghana, where we've been onboarding brands, to actually understand the benefit of investing in the fashion and design communities in those countries. Because when they're empowered financially and where they are, given the skills to actually, do more, then we see the impact you know, we spoke about this earlier, then we see the impact in revenue, then we see the impact in numbers, and then we see the impact in the GDP and what they contribute. And then it starts that cycle where, you know, it's seen as a viable means to a viable means of or an addition or a plus to a country. So for us, it's about actually working with governing bodies, working with existing bodies in those countries to actually, you know, have louder voices, to step up, to kind of lobby for more investment, for more a bigger highlight on what they do and what they contribute, on how the jobs these you know, and they're often seen as low skilled workers, but they're not, they're highly skilled. But to highlight what these people are doing, and the fact that they could do more, they could contribute more. You know, in the West, we see big fashion houses and, you know, producers and manufacturers contribute and turn over billions a year and, you know, contribute to GDPs in massive ways. But in Africa and in the developing countries, you know, design and fashion isn't seen as such a really, you know, a really strong industry. So for us, it's actually about educating and empowering and having those discussions to highlight that fact. And then I think when that actually is taken more importantly in the countries of origin, then that will actually just, it'll roll over into, you know, the brands that they work for, that they're manufacturing for outside of their countries that they're producing. So I think it starts at home. Charity begins at home. That conversation needs to start at home, and that's what we're also trying to do as well. And even with some of the partners we're working with, specifically LAFS, the Latin American Fashion Summit, we're actually working with them in order to get you know, conversations with governing bodies and fashion institutes on the continent to, you know, work together and like open up that network into how they can empower, you know, the design community back home. So, you know, it starts, I believe that's how it starts.
Okay, thank you. Another great question. Do you think we need a whole new world of business to emerge, or can we influence the existing organizations to change? If it's the latter, how do we translate this in traditional business language to engage people? Vessy, this sounds like one for you.
Yeah, having higher standards for organizations and them going through vigorous, like very much investigations and checks, just being held to very high criteria. So when we make decisions as customers, or like when we're picking our partners and so on, it isn't just about fair trade. We can see things in much bigger detail, but it is very much about, you know, what are the new businesses, the businesses of the future in that sense. I feel like, you know, for example, when we talk about recycling in a Western country, it's like, yeah, of course we will recycle, but even in a Western country, when someone is having low income, it's not a problem for them. Not that they're not worried about the future, but there is so much anxiety with, you know, the day-to-day existence. Yeah. So then, you know, we're looking at like emerging markets and so on. So it's really unfair to put all of the burden on the consumer. Like, for example, in Dublin right now, there are different like ads saying like, you know, you decided to check out. Yes, we do, but you know, not everyone has the time to actually do that, especially people who are paid by the hour a minimum wage, even you know, even in a Western country like Ireland. So I think it's up to you know, the governments, up to the corporations to drive this agenda, you know, the leaders that we were talking about earlier. And I think COVID was a great example. When urgency is happening, we know how to collaborate. All of a sudden we, you know, we do it, and we can see, you know, big pharma with academics, with governments and so on. So everything we're talking about is possible. It's just we keep postponing it.
Yeah. Okay. And Lama, I think you'll like this question. Somebody has asked, do you feel luxury in itself is a luxury, and how do we inspire developing communities on that front?
Luxury is absolutely a luxury. And actually, there's so much incredible products and creative minds in the industry that are underrepresented. COVID showed us actually it showed us something. It showed us that the big got bigger and the small can hardly survive. What we need to do as people who appreciate beauty and can afford something innovative and nice to reflect their character every now and then, we should support small businesses. We should support ethical businesses. We should stick to those people who are actually the voices of the majority, but they don't have the means to stand out and advertise and, guerrilla marketing and take over the whole internet, right? The luxury, actually, real luxury is unattainable. But unattainable can be small, can be precious, can be somewhere in Africa, somewhere in the Middle East, somewhere in Gaza, somewhere in Peru. It can be anywhere, right? So what I think, and more, the consumer is super aware today, and they have the reach thanks to social media to a lot of underrepresented and small businesses that are beautiful and made with passion and true stories, actually, true storytelling through art, through creativity, through fashion, through inherited skills, and also inherited skills. Inherited skills are luxurious now. There's the ultimate luxury because inherited skills are dying. There's no one that wants to be a silversmith or a carpenter, or no one wants to do those jobs anymore. They don't pay enough. So
It's such creative.
Those are the sectors. Creative economy is the economy we need to preserve.
Okay.
Not just digital and tech, right?
True. It's we've got 6 minutes left, so I want to ask one question of each of you and just see how each of you answer it. So what do you believe is the most important action a company should take right now, and that an individual should take right now to deliver climate justice and social justice for the communities that most need our help? Ayotunde, let's start with you. You're shaking your head. You look keen. So go for it.
Perfect. I think from a customer-centric sort of answer, I think customers should be more inquisitive. Ask and seek to know more about, who you're supporting by way of your funds. So you're not just buying a brand, you're not just buying an item of clothing or whatever it is, you're investing, you're financially empowering and investing into the person and the people behind that brand. So seek to know more. So that's what I'd advise to the customer. And that's, as we mentioned earlier, we're seeing that a lot in the Gen Zs. They're great with that. But I'd also encourage everyone else to also take that sort of approach. And now, as business leaders in this industry, for social and climate justice, I would say it's from a Jendaya perspective, it's about understanding who your partners are and looking to meet them in the middle, working well with them and not trying to impose a certain rule or standard that you feel is the benchmark or is the way things should be done, but meeting them in the middle and looking to work with them to empower them and to also give them that fair play and fair platform, which is what we're trying to do at Jendaya, empowering diverse designers and curating through that culture that empowers them and brings them to the forefront. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you. Vessy?
As an organization, typically a lot of this knowledge is missing internally. So it is around the partnership, or what Ayo was saying, but I think identifying our gaps and finding the partners that would be authentic partners, sometimes it's really hard to differentiate. But making the time to discover them. And sometimes with partnerships, you need to get started, take a leap of faith. And as you go, you identify who you're a good match with and who you're not, and it's fine. Sometimes it's also a matter of stage. So start exploring, start early. With individuals, we talked about, kind of like on a personal level, we talked about the personal exploration. Maybe not everyone wants to do it on their own. It can be a lonely journey. Maybe someone wants to do it with their leadership coach, or they want to do it with a psychotherapist. Like, as long as you feel safe, you know, you have psychological safety, you know, you will not be judged, you will be accepted and supported, so you can reach what's authentically true for you. I think that's what matters in that personal journey.
Thanks. Lama?
Or I think I spoke to the customer a lot in the sense of
Yeah.
buying from small businesses and all that. I think from a luxury or a big company's perspective, I think they need to maybe empower, adopt, encourage younger designers to join their team. I would say more diversity, more authenticity, and more in the sense of there has to be some sort of policing on, I don't know if I mean, I don't want to be too diplomatic, but I think also big brands sometimes take small brands' ideas and make them huge, right? So what I believe is that there has to be some sort of authority or policing on ideas, on creativity, on preserving also ideas, because small creatives cannot afford to patent their ideas and designs all the time.
Okay.
I also would encourage collaboration across so fashion with gastronomy, music, and I don't know, tech. I mean, everything needs to now overlap, and it's all senses are working together, and it's beautiful. Actually, collaboration is everything. And actually, in today's world, where a lot of small businesses have suffered a lot through COVID, I think collaboration means everything to the customer, to the brands, and I think every person has a duty, if they can, to support their local restaurant, their grocery, the smaller niche businesses that really need to survive through the coming few years, because it's going to be crucial.
Thank you. Right, it's time to wrap up. So I just want to start by thanking my Positive Luxury team who helped organize today's discussion. And who are, I'm very proud, they're very passionate about the issue of social justice, not just climate justice. Claudia is going to put the link to the paper that we have published on the subject online, so people can access that. You can go to our website as well to get it. I want to be really clear about Positive Luxury's viewpoint on these issues. If your definition of sustainability does not include social justice, it's not fit for purpose. And it's really time for us as a luxury industry, as sustainability experts, to step up and stand shoulder to shoulder with the people crying out for justice. Now's the time for us to be big and brave. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And most of all, thank you to my three lovely panelists who gave up their time and shared their ideas and their experience with us. It's very much appreciated. I'm going to hand over to Claudia.
Yes, thank you so much for your time today, Lama, Vessy, Ayotunde. I've just shared the link to download the report in the chat. So please email us at hello@positiveluxury.com if you have any questions, feedback. We want to hear from you. Thank you again for your time today, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.